Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. The IBF mandatory challenger Kubrat Pulev and his team are making a play to fight Andy Ruiz Jr. instead of Ruiz Jr. facing Anthony Joshua. So see here on screen, so this is a press release which has been issued. You can see here, not so fast, Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua. IBF #1 contender Kubrat Pulev petitions IBF for mandatory fight against champion Andy Ruiz Jr. So before we get into this, we know that Kubrat Pulev has just been cleared by the California State Athletic Commission. He can have a license within California, which means he can also box anywhere in the United States, because he had been under a suspension in California, which would have stopped him fighting elsewhere within the USA. That was over the kiss with Jenny Sushi Rivallo. That incident, I won't go into it, but he is now clear to fight anywhere in the United States, and clearly he wants to assert himself and his position within the IBF to try get a fight with Andy Ruiz Jr. And I'll get to some comments on this situation soon, because maybe there's a bit of this being more about PR rather than being a viable opportunity for Pulev. But the press release says Pulev and his team have officially petitioned the IBF, requesting they order their world champion Andy Ruiz Jr. to postpone his rematch with former champ Anthony Joshua and make an immediate mandatory defense against Pulev. And just for context, so the last IBF mandatory challenger was stand-in replacement Carlos Takam at the back end of 2017. So the IBF has not had a mandatory challenge on its belt for the best part of 2 years now. But I'll skip through some of this and into some of the quotes. So Bob Arum, Top Rank CEO, says, "We've been waiting patiently. Andy Ruiz has an obligation to fight #1 mandatory IBF contender Kubrat Pulev." Then it goes into Pulev's co-promoter Ivalo Gotsev. Eddie is running his heavyweight title like it's his own private empire. The bottom line is Pulev originally fought an IBF eliminator over 3 years ago and was next in line with his IBF mandatory status. The IBF is an organization that has set precedent for following their written rules according to Rule 5.A.1. Ruiz's rematch clause against Joshua does not affect his obligation to defend his title against the IBF leading available contender. Mandatory obligations supersede a promoter's promotional rights. The IBF should not set aside their rules over contractual details of a past fight. It goes on to say here, Ruiz himself is an indirect beneficiary of the IBF's respected reputation for strictly adhering to its rules. Then goes on to detail Tyson Fury's situation when he beat Klitschko, took the rematch instead of facing his mandatory. Goes on to list another example with Gennady Golovkin being stripped. And then you have Gotsev saying 2 months have gone by since the Joshua bubble burst. No deal has been confirmed, only the occasional blurb by Eddie Hearn of potential site and really no particular date. Eddie Hearn was talking to us for a November date at Wembley Stadium, and Andy Ruiz ruined those plans. Andy is the new face of the heavyweight boxing, and we respect his fighting abilities. Pulev versus Ruiz will be a formidable battle. I was ready to face Anthony Joshua in November, and now I'm eager to challenge Andy Ruiz, says Pulev. I will fight Ruiz anywhere in the world. Let's make it happen. So this concludes the press release which has been issued. So Kubrat Pulev and his team, Ivalo Gotsev of Epic Sports and Entertainment, as well as Bob Arum, they co-promote Pulev. He's now fighting in the United States, fought Bogdan Dinu in his first US fight back in March. He's been on the shelf because of this whole thing with Jenny Sushi Rivallo in that case, but he's clear of this now, and this is a big play by them to try and get a fight with Andy Ruiz Jr. So publicly, after the rematch was announced in terms of Anthony Joshua saying he was going to take up the rematch with Andy Ruiz Jr., there was some talk about would Andy Ruiz Jr. be able to hold on to his belts, because obviously mandatory considerations, one of which was Kubrat Pulev. But the talk and the discussion at that point in June was more, what would the order be? And the IBF actually confirmed they were after the WBO in the rotation. But obviously they would have to address this situation, the petition by Kubrat Pulev and his team, and there could be some more to sort of see here in terms of what they will do. it's, yeah, given the length of time, I mean, maybe they will be able to get some traction, but there's part of me that thinks this is more a PR stunt, that some of this is because Kubrat Pulev has effectively had a lot of bad publicity recently, and he's now been cleared, and it sort of smacks to me of they want to re-announce him as, you know, he's a factor in the division, that he is ready for his title shot, and it's more profile building. I don't know how much traction they would get off something like this. I'm doing a video on it, so clearly some, but I don't know if this is really going to affect the order of what potentially could happen. But it must be said, there have been no mandatories for those 3 belts this year. The voluntary with Andy Ruiz Jr., and he was a stand-in late replacement. You know, I had said last year, the mandatories are piling up, they're going to become an issue. And it looks like Ivalo Gotsev and Bob Arum, they want to exploit that situation. They want to say, look, no one's defended your title against a mandatory challenger for the best part of 2 years now. The rules and regulations for most of these sanctioning bodies generally require a mandatory defense to be done once a year. And for the WBA, I believe it's more 18 months because it's the super champion belt and their sort of array of belts that they have. But it will be interesting to see what happens here. But the IBF, they have not responded as yet. This has only just come out, so we will see where this develops. But will this be successful? Not so sure. It does sort of smack of maybe being more about PR and that sort of stuff, generating some headlines. But maybe it will have some legs. They obviously have looked at the situation and believe that there's a thread or two that they could maybe pull for something to happen. But at this point, just on the basis of fights that are sort of on the way, if it was to go in the order that we've been expecting, the rematch, then the WBO, and then Kubrat Pulev, that could be the best part of well over a year away for Kubrat Pulev. So obviously he wants to advance that because he's in his sort of, 37, 38, and he'll be a year older before he gets a title shot that he believes he deserves now. We'll see where this goes. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.